Because I was starving from working overtime. I tore open a pack of spicy Chinese sausage and started eating it. The result was that the female manager on the spot instantly exploded. She strode over in a rage, pointed straight at my nose, and shouted, "Lam Thien, do you think this company is your home or something? If you want to eat, get the hell back home and eat. This month, your 200 yuan commission is completely cut." I looked at her face, twisted with anger, and calmly stuffed another piece of sausage into my mouth. "Oh, fine," I said casually. Then, right in front of her, I opened a job recruitment app and started browsing. This time, it was her turn to panic. "Lam Thien, don't be impulsive, that's not what I meant." The female manager, Vong Kiat, went pale in an instant. The same person who had just been pointing at my nose and yelling was now forcing a smile uglier than crying. I didn't bother paying attention to her. My finger scrolled quickly through the recruitment app. I even seriously tapped on a position offering a 300 yuan salary and started reading it with interest. "If there's anything, we can talk it through slowly. We're colleagues in the same department. No need to make things so tense." Vong Kiet's voice softened, carrying a hint of ingratiation. I didn't even look up. "Manager Vong, you were the one who escalated things first. You made me work overtime. I stayed late. I was hungry, so I ate a pack of spicy noodles. And you immediately said you'd deduct 200 yuan from my commission. Now that I'm looking for another job, you're telling me not to be impulsive. I honestly don't understand your logic." My tone was as calm as if I were talking about how nice the weather was today. In the office, the other colleagues working overtime didn't dare breathe loudly. Everyone was secretly listening in. Vong Kiet's face shifted between green and white. It was obvious she had never been humiliated like this in front of her subordinates before. She took a deep breath, trying to salvage her dignity. "Lam Thien, I know you've worked hard. But after all, this is a company. Eating like that does affect the company's image. I was just speaking in anger earlier. As for the commission, we can discuss it again." "Discuss it again?" I finally raised my head and looked her straight in the eyes. "So what you mean is that 200 yuan was never something you planned to give me in full anyway?" Vong Kiet's eyes flickered, her voice hesitant. "How could that be? That's the money you deserve. But procedures still have to be followed." I laughed softly. I understood now. That 200 yuan commission was issued by the company. But it required the department manager's signature. She wanted to skim a portion of it. The spicy noodles were just an excuse to pick a fight and pressure me. I didn't bother arguing with her further. I held my phone and looked straight at the position offering 300 yuan. I pressed the contact button without hesitation. Vong Kiet was shaking with anger. I slowly stood up and began packing my personal items from the desk. One by one, into a cardboard box, my mug, the small potted plant, the keyboard, the mouse. Every time I put another item into the box, Vong Kiet's expression worsened a little. A sycophantic colleague, Li Na, crept over and whispered into Vong Kiet's ear. "Sister Vong, don't worry, she's just bluffing. With 200 yuan commission on the line, how could she really bear to leave?" Vong Kiet thought that made sense. Her expression relaxed slightly, and she straightened her back, putting on the authoritative air of a manager again. "Lam Thien, don't go too far. I know you've contributed to the company, but it's not like the company can't function without you." I didn't respond. I silently continued packing. When everything was neatly placed into the box, I carried it and walked up to her. "Manager Vong, please step aside." Vong Kiet froze. She clearly hadn't expected me to actually go through with it. "Lam Thien, if you dare walk out that door today, don't even think about getting a single cent of that 200,000, she screamed. Her voice loud but filled with panic. I stopped, turned around, and glanced at her. "Oh, I forgot to tell you. HL just contacted me and asked if I'd be interested in bringing the entire team over. Double the salary." After saying that, I didn't bother looking at her deathly pale face. I hugged the box, didn't look back, and walked straight out of the office. Behind me was a deathly silence. Then came a loud crash. The sound of a cup being smashed. As soon as I reached the elevator, my phone started ringing non-stop like it had gone mad. It was the CEO. Director Chu. The moment I answered, before I could say a word, his furious voice slammed into my ear. Lam Thien, come back to the office immediately. Who gave you the guts to slam the table and walk out in front of your superior? I leaned against the cold elevator wall, my voice steady. Director Chu, I think you may have misunderstood something. Misunderstood? He sneered. Vong Kiat called me personally. She said you openly defied management in the office, violated discipline, and even incited others to quit. I snorted inwardly. Of course the villain strikes first. I could clearly imagine how Vong Kiat embellished the story. Director Chu, I was just starving from overtime, so I ate a pack of spicy noodles. Manager Vong said she would deduct 200 yuan from my commission this month. So I thought, if the company is that strict, I don't want to cause any more trouble. I decided to resign voluntarily. There was silence on the other end. 200,000 yuan in commission was not a small amount. That meant I had brought in a deal worth several million for the company. Director Chu was a businessman. He understood very well what mattered and what could be overlooked. A few seconds later, his tone softened. Lam Thien, it's normal for young people to have a bit of personality. Vong Kiat can be a little blunt, but she's only acting in the company's interests. Why don't you come back first? And we'll talk it through in person? For the company's interests, it's acceptable to arbitrarily withhold an employee's legitimate income? I asked calmly. Director Chu was choked by my question. How about this? He said after a pause. Calm down first. As for the commission, I guarantee you won't be missing a single cent. Come back now, and I'll have Vong Kiat apologize to you. Have Vong Kiat apologize. It sounded sincere, but I understood their tricks too well. Today he could make her apologize to appease me. Tomorrow, he could just as easily protect her and find ways to suppress me. Because Vong Kiat was his wife's niece, a relative with backing, while I was just a walking money-making tool. No need, Director Chu. I've already made my decision. I'll email my resignation letter to you. I hung up immediately. The elevator dinged and the doors opened. I stepped inside with the box. As the doors slowly closed, they reflected my calm, almost cold expression. When I got back to my apartment, I put everything down and took a long hot shower. Then I ordered a premium spicy hot pot delivery, with plenty of spicy noodles added. My phone showed dozens of missed calls from Director Chu, from Vong Kiat, and from various colleagues. WeChat was exploding. In the department group chat, Li Na was enthusiastically criticizing me. It's just a few words of criticism. And you make such a huge scene? Earning the highest commission in the company and still so fragile. Seriously speechless. Sister Vong is really unlucky to run into someone like her. Several colleagues who usually clung to Vong Kiat chimed in one after another. Meanwhile, those who used to be close to me all chose silence. I looked at the chat and let out a cold laugh. This was the workplace. No permanent friends, only permanent interests. I didn't bother explaining myself. I quietly took screenshots. Then I opened WeChat and sent a photo of the premium spicy hot pot to a major client. Director Trong, with a message. Director Trong, finally have time to eat a proper meal. He replied almost instantly with a question mark. I sent another message. I just resigned from my old company. Feeling much lighter now. There was about a minute of silence. Then a call came through immediately. Lam Thien, what happened? You resigned? Director Trong's voice was both shocked and serious. Yes, I just completed the process today. I replied, calmly and professionally, even as I picked up a piece of spicy noodle and ate it with relish. Why so suddenly? What about that multi-million contract of yours? The follow-up steps and technical maintenance? His voice tightened. I only trust you. Director Trong was the client I had pursued for half a year. He had a volatile temper but was an upright person. He was a technical expert who hated office politics and favoritism. I landed that contract not through schmoozing. but through real capability and sincerity. Don't worry, Director Trong, even though I've resigned, I've fully arranged all project materials and the next person in charge. I left complete and detailed handover documents. It won't affect the project schedule at all. That's my professional principle. Even when I resign, I fulfill my responsibilities to the very end. That's not what I mean, Director Trong said, sounding a bit urgent. I chose to work with you because I trust you as a person. I trust your technical solutions. Switching to someone else makes me uneasy. That manager Vong from your company, when we had dinner last time, she already rubbed me the wrong way. She didn't know anything, just kept flattering and pouring drinks. Extremely annoying. I chuckled softly. What can you do? She's a relative of the top boss. On the other end, Director Trong snorted in disdain. Nepotism, as expected. Lam Thien, tell me honestly, has she been suppressing you? I didn't answer directly and changed the subject. Director Trong, that's not worth mentioning anymore. I hope we still have the chance to cooperate in the future. The line went silent, so silent that I thought he had hung up. Lam Thien, his voice came back, deep and steady. Your ability, I acknowledge, but relying on just yourself isn't enough. In this industry, without at least one of these three connections, a team, or resources, you won't survive. My heart sank slightly. He was right, every word of it. Then his tone suddenly changed. But opportunities aren't non-existent. My heart skipped a beat. My subsidiary will be holding a public bid at the end of this month for an extremely important project. The scale is far larger than any contract you've handled before. And the technical requirements are significantly more complex. This is a real battlefield. Only true capability will matter. All the major companies will participate. I can't give you any special treatment. And there will be no backdoor. He paused briefly, his tone carrying a deliberate sense of provocation. If you have the ability, then within this short time frame, assemble a team, come up with a proposal that convinces both me and the judging committee completely. And win the bid. Only then will we have the basis to discuss long-term cooperation. But if you can't pull it off, then consider today's call as something that never existed. Just focus on surviving. He hung up. I stared at the bowl of spicy hot pot in front of me, still unfinished, and suddenly felt no appetite at all. Director Trong hadn't sold me a fantasy. He had shown me a path, one suspended over a bottomless abyss. Win, and the world opens wide. Lose, and there's no coming back. Who would have thought that a single pack of spicy noodles would end up tearing open the biggest gamble of my entire career? While I was lost in thought, my phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. I answered. Hello? Are you Lam Thien? A sharp female voice rang out. I am, and you are? I'm Director Chu's wife, and also Vong Kiet's aunt. Oh, so the real boss finally showed herself. What can I do for you? I asked calmly. Lam Thien, I don't care what methods you used. You are to return to the company immediately and apologize to Vong Kiet. Right now. Her voice was sharp as a blade, full of command, allowing no resistance. Otherwise, I'll make sure you have no place left in this industry. Oh, I let out a soft laugh. Nasal and lazy, laced with sarcasm. Madam Chu, that's quite the tone. Who do you think you are? The queen of the industry? On the other end of the line. She clearly hadn't expected that reaction. After a few seconds of stunned silence, she erupted in fury. You cheap bitch, who the hell do you think you are? Talking to me like that? Without the Chu family giving you a chance, you'd still be slurping instant noodles in some filthy corner right now. I gave you a bit of color and you think you opened a paint shop? Let me tell you something. I've already called every executive I know in your industry. Let's see who still dares to hire you. So that was it. No wonder HL, who had been speaking enthusiastically with me earlier that afternoon, had suddenly gone completely silent. Turns out the boss's wife was behind the scenes, trying to blacklist me. Ridiculous. Madam Chu, you've been watching too many TV dramas. I said coolly. You think a few phone calls can cut off my future? The world is big, It's not just your living room. She was so furious she couldn't even speak. I didn't bother wasting another word. I hung up and blocked the number. At last, the world went quiet again. I leaned back against the sofa, tilted my head up toward the ceiling, my mind completely blank. Was I angry? A little, but more than that, there was a chilling calm, the kind that comes when you're pushed into a corner with no way out. All of this, just because of a pack of spicy noodles. Just because I refused to bow my head under Von Kiet's intimidation. They wanted to destroy me completely. The company I had devoted myself to day and night, the one for which I had brought in millions in profit, was nothing more than their private backyard. And I was just a gardener who didn't obey orders. Someone they could kick out or beat down whenever they pleased. My value, my expertise, my effort, all of it became worthless in the face of their steel-solid blood ties. I used to believe that as long as I had ability and results, I would be respected. I believed professionalism and competence were armor that could protect me. But now I understood, against people who disregard rules entirely, armor is just a joke. They don't fight you head-on. They stab you in the back with the dirtiest methods imaginable. My phone screen lit up again. It was a message from Director Trong's assistant, a publicly released document about the end-of-month bid. As I stared at that file, the tightly wound nerves in my body suddenly relaxed completely. That's right. Why should I waste energy entangling myself with trash? Why should I bother proving I'm not filthy while standing in a pile of shit? They wanted to blacklist me. They wanted to push me to a dead end. Then I would stand right in the industry they took pride in. Right in front of everyone. And step over them openly with my head held high. I am not some soft persimmon meant to be kneaded at will. If they want to destroy me, then I'll flip their entire table first. Director Chu, Von Kiet, Madam Chu, haven't you always thought I couldn't survive without you? That you could control my entire career however you pleased? Then I'll make sure you witness it with your own eyes, me climbing to a height you'll never reach in your entire lives. You will pay the highest possible price for what you did today. At that very moment, something inside me snapped awake. Reasoning had been the biggest mistake I ever made when dealing with garbage like them. The only thing that can truly confront them is power. The next day, Director Chu called again. His tone was much gentler than before, even carrying a trace of fake concern. Lam Thien, come to the company for a visit. Let's talk things through face to face. Don't let misunderstandings spread. You're still young, don't let a moment of impulsiveness ruin your future. Sure, I said, agreeing decisively, but not at the company. The old cafe, 10 o'clock. I have some resignation paperwork and financial settlements that need to be confirmed in person. On the other end, Director Chu paused briefly. He clearly hadn't expected me to be this calm, or to initiate a meeting myself. It gave him the illusion that I had softened. All right, I'll be there on time, he replied, his voice low and self-satisfied, as if he had regained the upper hand. 10 o'clock, the cafe. Director Chu pushed the door open and walked in, with Von Kiet following behind him, her face full of reluctance. When he saw me sitting there alone, a faint, barely perceptible look of triumph flashed across his face. It's good that you've thought things through, Lam Thien, he said as he pulled out a chair and sat down, adopting the posture of a senior lecturing a junior. Young people should be grateful when a company gives them a platform. Von Kiet may have done some things wrong, but... I raised my hand and cut him off. Director Chu, let's not waste time. I'm here today to talk about 3 things. I placed my phone on the table and turned on the recording. Madam Chu's shrill, vicious voice echoed clearly throughout the cafe, her declaration of blacklisting me. Word for word. Director Chu's face instantly turned the color of liver. He shot a furious glare at Von Kiet. She shrank back in fear. First, I said, turning off the recording, the 200 yuan commission. Transfer it immediately. In addition, according to labor law, Jia Kai violated regulations and owes compensation. I don't want a lawsuit. So add another 100 yuan for emotional damages. A total of 300 yuan. Not a cent less. Second, I looked straight at Vong Kiat. She apologizes to me, in person. Third, the project handled for Director Trong was under my responsibility. The contract includes a key personnel clause. If the responsible person leaves, that would be me. The client has the right to unilaterally terminate the contract. I smiled faintly. I think Director Trong would be very interested in that information. Director Chu's pupils contracted sharply. He had clearly never paid attention to that detail. It was equivalent to handing me a massive bomb. Lam Thien, he said through clenched teeth. Do you really have to push things this far? Push things? I looked up at him. My gaze icy. When manager Vong tried to deduct 200 yuan from my commission. When your wife called to threaten to blacklist me, why didn't you think things were too far, then? You're blackmailing us, Vong Kiat screamed, unable to hold it in any longer. I smiled and picked up my phone. I can send this recording, along with evidence of Vong Kiat deliberately skimming employee commissions, to Director Trong and several industry media outlets. Take a guess, whose reputation collapses first? Hers, or my career? Under the table, Director Chu's fists clenched, then slowly relaxed. He was a businessman. He knew how to calculate losses. If this exploded, losing clients and reputation would cost far more than 300 yuan. In the end, he deflated like a punctured balloon and turned to Vong Kiat. Apologize. Vong Kiat reluctantly bowed her head and apologized. The 300 yuan was quickly transferred into my account. Now you delete the recording and forget about the contract issue, he said darkly. Of course. I smiled calmly and deleted the recording right in front of him. Watching his visibly relieved expression, I slowly stood up. Oh, right, Director Chu. I paused. I almost forgot to tell you. I'll be participating in the end-of-month bid for Director Trong's subsidiary. His expression changed instantly, then he let out a cold, contemptuous laugh. Just you, he said. A nobody starting from zero. Just wait and see. I left him with a smile full of hidden meaning and turned to walk away. Director Chu watched my retreating figure, his gaze dark and gloomy. He thought he had simply paid some money to buy peace and silence, but what he didn't know was that the money he paid was exactly the war fund for my next battle. The real fight was only just beginning. The very first thing I did after getting the money was rent a small office. Then I immediately contacted several former technical corps members from Vong Kiat's department, Tu Vong, Kiat, and Lila. They were all people with real capability and genuine passion, and they had long since grown sick of an outsider like Vong Kiat leading the technical department simply because she was related to the boss. I laid out the entire bidding plan for Director Trong's project and explained my vision to them clearly. This is an all-in gamble for me, I said. If we win, we start a company together. Everyone gets equity. If we lose, I take all the losses myself. You can go back to big companies and start over. The choice is yours. They barely hesitated. Sister Thien, Tu Vong said immediately. We've had enough of idiots who know nothing about technology but point fingers all day long. We're in. And just like that, the team began to take shape. But I had underestimated Director Chu. He wasn't useless. The moment he realized I was truly taking action, he launched a coordinated attack, media pressure and internal sabotage. The very next day, Tu Vong came to see me, his face heavy. Sister Thien, something bad happened. Yesterday, Director Chu called each of us in for a private talk. He promised that if we stayed at the company and helped take you down, he'd make me technical director. Kiat and Lila would become team leads. Each of us would also get a 100 yuan project bonus. Tu Vong clenched his fists. And he said you betrayed the company and took core materials. That if we followed you, we'd definitely get sued sooner or later, maybe even go to prison. Divide, lure, smear. A perfectly executed combo, fast, vicious, lethal. My heart sank slightly, but my expression stayed calm. What do you all think? I asked. Tiu Vong scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. Of course we believe you. His words might fool people like Li Na, but not us. We've followed you for 2 years. We know exactly what kind of person you are. Kiet nodded and added. The plan he's using now was butchered by Vong Kiet beyond recognition. Even we couldn't stand looking at it. Only your original design, the one that got rejected, is truly top tier. We want to make it real. Warmth surged through my chest. Good, hearing that was enough. But from another direction, the news wasn't so optimistic. A former colleague secretly messaged me. Sister Thien, be careful, Director Chu has gone crazy. He ordered Vong Kiet and Li Na to lead a team to collect all of Director Trong's project materials and redo everything from scratch. He even hired an external consulting firm to package the proposal to perfection. He said he wants to execute you publicly at the bid meeting. At the same time, rumors began spreading through the industry, fabricated, malicious ones. They said I had bad character. That I was an ungrateful traitor. That I had stolen company secrets. Director Chu wanted to strangle me before I could even surface. So he wanted to play. Then I'd play it all the way through. My voice stayed calm, but a blazing fire ignited in my eyes. For the next half-month, my small team and I entered full lockdown mode. Days were spent in the rented technical office. Nights were for coding. Hungry? Instant noodles. Spicy noodles. Sleepy? Crash on folding beds for a few hours. We didn't have the resources of Director Chu's company. No polished PowerPoint decks. No consultant refined reports. We had only one thing. Absolute belief. And one all-in gamble. And a brand new technical architecture capable of overturning the industry's entire understanding. Director Chu wanted to win with flashy slides. Then I would crush him with pure technical strength, so completely he'd never stand up again. I would rip off every layer of his fake mask in front of everyone. On the day of the bid, the conference hall was packed with heavyweight figures from the industry. My makeshift team, Tiu Vong, Kiet, Lila, and I, sat quietly in a far corner. Dark circles ringed everyone's eyes after multiple sleepless nights. We looked utterly out of place among the sea of luxury suits and polished leather shoes. Director Chu and Vong Kiet arrived like they were walking a red carpet, radiating confidence as they took seats in the front row VIP area. People surrounded them, laughing and chatting, the posture of someone who already believed victory was guaranteed. When Director Chu saw me, his gaze swept over like a blade, the corner of his mouth curling into a sneer. Vong Kiet didn't even bother hiding her hatred. She looked as if she were already watching me crash and burn. The bidding began. One major company after another presented. The proposals were all standard, safe, and competent, but nothing groundbreaking. Finally, it was Director Chu's company's turn. As the project lead, Vong Kiet stepped onto the stage in a brand new designer suit. Confident, flanked by a team of professional consultants. She opened a dazzling PowerPoint presentation, glossy animations, blockbuster-level effects. Our Galaxy project adopts the most advanced hybrid cloud architecture currently available. She announced, integrating AI into system orchestration, while leveraging blockchain technology to ensure data security. Buzzword after buzzword poured out in a flood. The audience nodded repeatedly. The proposal looked flawless. The vision was grand. The future was radiant, combined with an extremely competitive price. The entire hall began to buzz with excitement. A victorious smile bloomed on Director Chu's face. This was exactly what he wanted, using a glamorous shell to hide hollow content. More than enough to fool most people. I sat there with my arms crossed, watching Vong Kiet present, a mocking smile tugging at my lips. She finished. It was time for the judges' questions. The first few judges asked about budget and timelines. The consultant beside Vong Kiet handled them smoothly with polished rhetoric. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. Until Director Trong, the chief judge, finally picked up the microphone. He didn't look at Von Kiet. He looked straight at the actual technical lead standing behind her. Your proposal mentions an AI-based dynamic traffic prediction model, he said calmly. May I ask where the training data for this model comes from? When facing sudden, non-cyclical, unpredictable traffic spikes, what is the model's response time? 2 seconds at the cloud level? Have you conducted stress testing? What is the maximum QPS? Each question was like a surgical blade, precise, merciless, cutting straight through the flashy exterior and into the heart. The technical lead froze. Cold sweat instantly soaked his back. Their so-called model was nothing more than a vague concept built on historical data. It had never been tested in real-world scenarios. No stress tests. Nothing. Well, our model has self-learning adaptability, he stammered. In theory, it should be able to handle. In theory? Director Trong frowned. I need data, not theory. Von Kiet and the consultant went completely stiff. They didn't understand the technical details being asked, at all. The hall fell into dead silence. Every gaze locked onto the people on stage, who were now stammering, unable to answer. The awkwardness was so thick it could have been carved into a city with bare toes. It seems you weren't fully prepared, Director Trong said, placing the microphone down, disappointment clear in his voice. Next, the team led by Ms. Lam Thien. I stood up and straightened my plain shirt. Under the surprised, curious, and faintly contemptuous gazes of the audience, I walked onto the stage, calm and decisive. I didn't rush to open my slides. My deck used a simple template thrown together overnight. Visually, it couldn't compare at all to Director Chu's Galaxy project. I looked straight at Von Kiet, her face pale as paper, and smiled faintly. Regarding the questions Director Trong just raised, I said evenly, I believe I can answer them. All eyes in the hall snapped toward me. Director Chu and Von Kiet stared as if they'd seen a ghost. Any AI model divorced from real-world context is nothing but a castle in the clouds. I continued, especially for Director Trong's project, the unpredictability of sudden traffic spikes is the core problem. So the very idea of prediction is flawed from the start. My voice wasn't loud, but every word landed like a slap across the faces of Director Chu's company, and the expensive consulting firm they'd hired. Director Chu's face shifted from triumph to a sickly green. The correct approach isn't predicting, I said steadily, it's endurance and dispersion. Only then did I switch on my slides. No animations, no flashy colors, just clean architectural diagrams and hard data. Our solution is called fan thatch. We don't use fancy terms like hybrid cloud. Instead, we designed a completely new honeycomb-style distributed architecture. The core isn't predicting traffic, but when a spike occurs, the system activates our self-developed microservice fragmentation technology. In an instant, a single service is split into hundreds, thousands of microservices, like a beehive, dispersing pressure across countless nodes. In this system, prediction is unnecessary. It was born to withstand loads 10 times. Even 100 times normal traffic. As for response time, it remains stable at the cloud level. And regarding maximum QPS, this is our continuous 72-hour extreme stress test report. I projected the report onto the screen. Dense, detailed, brutally real. Every line of data came from the harshest tests imaginable. The entire hall erupted into commotion at once. The judges and technical experts in particular lit up with excitement in their eyes. Compared to Director Chu's flashy but hollow Galaxy project, my fan thatch proposal was plain, direct, and brutally precise, solid as bedrock. This was what a real technical proposal looked like. Director Chu's face drained from sickly green to deathly pale. Only then did he finally realize he had stepped into a carefully laid trap. He had wanted to humiliate me with money and appearances. But instead, he was being publicly executed in the very core field he prided himself on. From that point on, the presentation almost turned into my personal stage. I answered every question calmly and clearly, responding with smooth precision, laying out every strength of our solution in the most convincing way possible. When I stated that the cost of our proposal was only 5% higher than Director Chu's glossy presentation, the entire hall erupted into thunderous applause that could no longer be held back. At the end of my presentation, it was Director Trong himself who stood up first and applauded. The result was no longer in doubt. The bid concluded, and Director Trong announced on the spot that the project had officially been awarded to my startup company. But he wasn't finished. He added that, given Director Chu's company's severe lack of professionalism during today's bidding process and its deliberate use of empty concepts to mislead the client, all prior cooperation with that company would be terminated immediately. Formal legal notice would follow after the meeting. A fatal double strike. Director Chu staggered, nearly unable to stay on his feet. Not only had he lost the new project, every existing contract collapsed along with it. He was finished. He gathered what little strength he had left and turned to glare at me. His eyes bloodshot, as if he wanted to devour me alive. I merely returned a faint, indifferent smile. Then, right in front of everyone, I walked over to my teammates, Tiu Vong, Akiet, and Lila. "We won," I said. Without even glancing back, I left the hall. Behind me came Director Chu's powerless howls and Vong Kiet's desperate sobbing. Chapter 9. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. The bidding session, like a public execution, quickly turned into a storm that swept through the entire industry. Director Chu's company became the biggest joke in the field. A firm that relied on connections and flashy slide decks had been utterly crushed by a small startup team before it could even react. The stock price plummeted without breaks. Clients terminated contracts en masse. Cash flow fell into severe crisis. The board held emergency meetings all night long. Director Chu was stripped of all positions and kicked out of the company in disgrace. To save himself, he dumped all responsibility onto Vong Kiet, accusing her of professional incompetence and internal deception that had caused massive losses. She became the perfect scapegoat. Not only was she fired, but she was also sued for falsifying technical data and causing severe financial damage, stabbed clean through the heart by her own uncle. The irony was cruel. The person she had once proudly flaunted turned out to be the one who delivered the fatal blow. As for Li Na and the rest of the fair weather followers, they became rats scurrying across the street. The new management, eager to sever all ties with the past, swiftly purged the remnants of Vong Kiet's faction. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter, everyone fleeing in their own direction. In stark contrast stood my new company. After that decisive battle, our reputation exploded, orders poured in non-stop, investment and resources from Director Trong flowed steadily. My team expanded at a breathtaking pace. That day, I was reviewing documents in my office when my assistant knocked and entered. "President Lam, there's a woman downstairs asking to see you. She says her name is Li Na, your former colleague." "Li Na? What did she want?" "Let her up." A few minutes later, Li Na appeared before me. Gone was her former arrogance, in its place was a fawning, obsequious expression. "Thien, no, President Lam," she said, rubbing her hands together with an awkward smile. "I heard your company is hiring. I was wondering, do I still have a chance?" I leaned back in my chair, coldly examining her from head to toe. "I remember that in the company group chat. The person who insulted me the hardest, wasn't that you?" Her face instantly flushed red like raw liver. That was because Vong Kiet forced me," she stammered. I had no choice. I was forced." "President Lam. Was that so?" I smiled faintly, pulled out a stack of printed A4 papers from my drawer, and tossed them onto the desk in front of her. "These are screenshots of the group chat. Every message where you and several others insulted me. Following Vong Kiet because you were pressured, I can understand that. But if I were to send these screenshots to your current company's internal group, so everyone could understand what your being forced really looks like, that wouldn't be a problem, would it?" Li Na's pupils dilated instantly. Her face went deathly pale. She understood perfectly, if I did that, her career in this industry would be over. No, please don't, President Lam. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. With a dull thud, she dropped to her knees and burst into sobs. I'm begging you, please leave me a way out. I looked at her kneeling before me, crying miserably. There wasn't a trace of pity or sympathy in my heart. None at all. When she had joined Vong Kiat in trampling me back then, had she ever imagined a day like this? I didn't say I forgave her. I didn't tell her to stand up either. I simply watched silently, letting her writhe in humiliation and fear. Only after a long time did I coldly say 2 words. Get out. Li Na was spared. She scrambled to her feet and bolted out as if chased by demons. I picked up the stack of chat screenshots and casually tossed them into the shredder. Destroying someone is easy, but I much prefer watching them destroy themselves. Not long after, I heard that Li Na had been fired from her new company for falsifying her resume and being exposed for workplace bullying. Unable to survive in the city, she quietly returned to her hometown. As for Vong Kiat, the verdict in her lawsuit had been delivered. Not only was she ordered to pay enormous compensation to the company, but her record was permanently stained with a conviction for commercial fraud. Her life, for all intents and purposes, was over. That day, I received an unexpected call from Director Chu. His voice was old and exhausted. None of the former authority left. Lam Thien, can I meet you once? Is there any need? I asked. I just want to apologize. He pleaded. I have nothing left now. My wife divorced me. I only want some peace of mind. I was silent for a moment. All right, the old cafe. Director Chu looked much older than before, half his hair white. His body gaunt, his back bent. When he saw me, he forced out a bitter smile. You're even more capable than I ever imagined, he said. I underestimated the strength of someone driven to the edge. Yes, I replied calmly. You were wrong. He let out a long sigh. I shouldn't have indulged Vong Kiat. And I definitely shouldn't have used dirty tricks against you. I came today to return something to you. He took an old document envelope from his worn briefcase and slid it across the table. I opened it, and froze. Inside wasn't money or legal paperwork. It was a yellowed certificate, the first prize award from a national professional competition I had won back in college. I had submitted it when I first joined the company. When I resigned in a hurry, I forgot to retrieve it. I had assumed it had been thrown away like trash. I had HR search for a long time before finding it. Director Chu said quietly, "This is your honor. It shouldn't have been buried." I looked at the certificate in my hands, emotions surging. "Thank you," I said, carefully putting it away. Lam Thien. Director Chu lifted his head. His gaze complicated. My company will declare bankruptcy next month. I know you're very successful now. If you're interested, I can help you acquire it at the lowest possible price. I interrupted him. Director Chu, I won't be buying your company. He froze, clearly not understanding. I looked straight at him, speaking slowly, deliberately. I'm not saying this to humiliate you. And it's not because I lack interest. I want you to witness it with your own eyes. To watch what you built with your own hands, and then destroyed with your own hands. To see it liquidated, split apart, crushed into nothing, turned to dust. That, I said calmly, is the most interesting form of revenge to me. What do you think? Director Chu's body trembled slightly. His cloudy eyes stared at me, his lips quivering, unable to form a word. At last, the once arrogant man bowed his head silently beneath the cafe's warm yellow lights. Aged tears sliding down his deeply lined face. Half a year later, my company had become a rising star in the industry. Backed by solid technical strength and a strong reputation, we secured multiple major projects. Our scale and influence had far surpassed Director Chu's company at its peak. I knew this story, my story, was only just beginning. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, Subscribe to China Story Tales, and stay tuned for more stories.